Hey guys, it's me again, and now I want to do a post talking about Audiences Unlimited or A Page Enterprise, which was Audiences Unlimited, which was the page or audience company that I worked for between 2014 and 2019 in Los Angeles, Hollywood area, Burbank, Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Redondo Beach, and all the areas around there, of all the sitcoms that taped in the area and shows that that company got to work at. So Audiences Unlimited, a little backstory. I believe that company started, in 1982. I believe it was 1982. It could have been in the fall, the spring, I'm not sure. But they started around the time when the shows such as Gimme a Break, Different Strokes, The Facts of Life, and I believe maybe Archie Bunker's Place before it ended, those shows were in production. Three's Company before that one ended. It was in the early 80s, 82, 83, 84. So those were the shows that were taping at that time. Mama's Family, the early Mama's Family episodes. So my company, I believe, got those shows. I think they got those shows, or the majority of them, because on-camera audiences and One Iota, I don't think those were not around back then. So I'm not sure if just the productions themselves had audience coordinator pages of their own, or whichever studio they worked at did the shows with only those studio pages, like Fox or Paramount or wherever. Who knows? But that's a little backstory of how Audiences Unlimited started. It started, I believe, in 1982. And those were the shows that my company had. And then as time went on, they got more shows throughout the 80s. They got the Golden Girls. They got Webster. They got Who's the Boss? Mr. Belvedere. Amen. 227. Full House. Roseanne. And then as the 90s came about, they got all those other shows that I didn't really get into. They also had Cheers, I believe. I'm sure they had Cheers throughout all the 80s and early 90s. And then they had those shows in the 90s that I didn't really care about that much, like Friends, The Drew Carey Show, Seinfeld, those kind of shows. But my company got the majority of these sitcoms back then. Most of them, or practically all of them, or the ones that did film live in front of an audience. Maybe, I'm not sure if Punky Brewster did. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but I think it might have. I know Alf didn't. I know that, because it took a long time to film Alf. They had to put him under the floor, and there's a puppet, and it took so many takes. So they could have never done that one live in front of an audience. But they did a lot of shows throughout the 80s and 90s that I loved. They also did all the TGIF shows. They did Home Improvement, Step by Step. They did Family Matters, Boy Meets World. And then I moved to LA in 2005. And at that time, a lot of sitcoms were stopping. They didn't have as many anymore. In the 80s, there were so many. In the 90s, there were so many. So I was told that at CBS Radford in Studio City, not Hollywood, but Radford, about 15 minutes away in Studio City, they had a page office there. The A Page Enterprise, Audiences Unlimited, had a page office up until the time the CBS pages took over at CBS Radford. Now, when I was a page in 2007, we weren't going to CBS Radford. I think that happened when OCA took over the tickets at The Price is Right, and everything changed over there in Hollywood. So then the CBS pages were the majority of the pages who did the sitcoms that filmed at CBS Radford. That's by the time I started over there in 2014, they only needed two pages from Audiences Unlimited to do tickets. And then all the CBS pages, they escorted everybody. So, and all the shows we did on our own without the CBS pages, like at Warner Brothers and Fox or wherever, we did everything. We didn't have any studio pages at. But like Paramount, they had all their pages to do the escorting, and we did tickets. And CBS Radford, the same thing. We did tickets, like 2 of us pages, and the rest of those CBS pages, they did the escorting. So I never got to really work. I never worked Paramount, like whatever film there. Like I think the Nickelodeon stuff filmed there, the sitcoms. And then at CBS Radford, I think it was Last Man Standing and Hunt and Cleveland that were there when I was, and the first season of Roseanne when it came back, before it became the Connors. I never got to work any of those, because they had their own 2 sets of pages, 2 or 3 of them, that did tickets over there. And then CBS pages would escort them. So I got hired as a CBS page in 2007. And I was there throughout 2007 during Bob Barker's final season. And then I was applying to jobs. And then my friend Charles Chen got a job at Audiences Unlimited. I think it was in 2008, after he left CBS. And I said, I'd love to get into there. So I emailed the company. I said, I'd love to get in. I'd love to work there. But they had all their pages. And every time I go back to email them once a year, I check in on it. I say, are you guys looking for pages? Are you looking for pages? 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then by that time, they told me, I think the head of Audiences Unlimited was Beverly Merrill. She said, even if we need you for a day, we'll let you know. We do a thing called Page for a Day, in which the pages we have recommend other people to try out that, or you can just look at our website, and we do have submissions for Page for a Day. Send us your resume. If we like you, we'll call you in. If you want to work on the spot, bring a black shirt and a clipboard. That's all you need, or just a black shirt, and come in and help us escort. That's all. Because we can't train you, but we could train you how to just escort back and forth if you don't get hired permanently. So I believe it was the spring of 2014. Spring of 2014, I started getting an email. I got an email, a mass email they sent out they needed pages for a day, I think, for several shows that were filming like their last episodes of a season. Big Bang Theory, Mom, Mike and Molly. But I was so busy I couldn't do any of those. That was like in April of 2014, May, something like that. I believe it was April, because the finales aired in May or so. So, and then in the end of June, early July, I got a voicemail from Beverly, and she goes, Mark, I'd love to have you come in and interview. And I didn't even do Page for a Day. I'm like, wow. I didn't even do Page for a Day, and they called me from my resume. They finally had an opening after so many years. I interviewed. I told them I used to work at CBS. I used to get all the audiences to have fun if the price is right. And I used to be loud out there. I had a voice. And she said, that's good. You need to be loud to get that audience to listen. And that's what I was. I was loud, and I was energetic, and I was very, very greeting and very nice to people and welcoming. And that's what it takes to be a page. You don't need everything. You don't need all these smarts and everything. You need to be just good with people and nice and accepting and friendly. And let them have a great experience when they're on set and before the show. And that's what I wanted to do. So she goes, okay, I think we could try you out. I think you'd be great. So I started my first show I got to work on was Mike and Molly. That was in July 31st of 2014, a.k.a. my ex-best friend Jessica's birthday. 2014, 1992, 2002, 2012. It was her 32nd birthday. Woo! July 31st. I'll never forget that. I think, that was the first day I worked, I believe. July 31st on Mike and Molly at Warner Brothers. I never worked in Warner Brothers ever. Not even as an extra, nothing. I'm like, that's the only studio I've never worked at. And it turns out Warner Brothers was the studio I worked the most at over the years, after all the shows I got to work at Audiences Unlimited, between 2014 and 2019. So I got to work Mike and Molly, Mom, Two Broke Girls. Those all filmed at Warner Brothers. I got to work one time at... what's that one? 2.5 Men. And I got to work one time on Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's the only time I worked at CBS Radford. And then I got to work on America's Funniest Videos, aka America's Funniest Home Videos, before Tom Bergeron left. It was like one of his last seasons. That filmed, I believe, in Redondo Beach area over there. I forget the name of the studio. Redondo Beach. One of those beach cities over there. So I got to work that. And then, as time went on, Girl Meets World was already filming. I wasn't there for the pilot, but I know it was filming because my company had the show. And then I got to work that, I believe, one time. Yes. It was one time in the spring of 2015. And then Fuller House came back. Fuller House came back as Fuller House. And Beverly had stepped down. She left Audiences Unlimited after so many years. And then Frank Posh took over. He had been with Audiences Unlimited for quite a time as well. Now, when I started at Audiences Unlimited, there were so many legendary pages still there that had started in 1998, 1999, and they got to work on all the TGIF shows before they got canceled. Like Boy Meets World, and Family Matters, and Step by Step, and I think Home Improvement, yeah. And they were amazing pages. I looked up to them. I was like, wow, I envy you guys. You guys get to work on some of my favorite shows back then. There was the head page, Kenneth, Melanie, and Jerry. They got to work so many shows over the years, starting around that time. And they had been there the longest out of everybody. And there were other pages too, but I think had been there almost as long as them. But I think those were the longest running pages. And then there were other head pages. There was Jen. She had worked on a lot of shows over the years. There was, who else? Andrew. He was really funny. He was from Scotland. And then there were other pages that had been there a long time as well. Just regular pages like Morris. And, Morris was there a long time. And Elizabeth. Elizabeth was like my favorite page out of everybody. But Elizabeth, she was a character like me. And she believed in my talent. And she said, I like your work. I was giving her ideas for all these shows. And she knew people, and she said, I'm going to try to get your Family Matters reboot out there. Family Still Matters. And we tried. I gave her all the info. I registered the script and everything. But nothing ever happened with that. It was all talk, but nothing ever happened with anything. But it was fun. I'm like, just if anything happens, it happens, People say they claim they know this one, that one. And the truth is she did. My friend Elizabeth, she was from New York, I believe, and she got to be a stand-in on The Cosby Show for Cousin Pam, Erica Alexander, back in the early 90s. And then she moved to LA, and then she got into Audiences Unlimited after that. So that's how I knew Elizabeth. And all the shows we'd work together, she was mostly at Sony. She would work on One Day at a Time, and whatever shows were filming on the lot there. So that she was a regular page on those shows. So whenever I'd work those shows, she'd be there, and she'd be, hi this one, hi that one, to the directors, the actual directors. She knew them because they'd worked with her before. And Norman Lear loved her. She goes, oh, Norman Lear loves me. She actually gave him my resume and my headshot. And he's like, oh, you remind me of Wheezy on the Jeffersons. Because she used to work One Day at a Time, and she talked to everybody. She talked to Rita Moreno. She introduced me to Rita Moreno at the season 2 finale taping of One Day at a Time. Oh, this is my writing partner, Mark. So that was a lot of fun. So, and that was Elizabeth. And then there were other pages over the years. There was, I forget who else. But, those were some of the ones that I was good friends with. And I looked up to all the pages. They were, to me, after what I'd been through at CBS, as a CBS page, and what I lived through and what I saw with on-camera audiences, how they hired this one page back that they had fired, that Roger Dobkowitz had fired, Mike, because he lost control of the audience at The Price is Right and said dirty jokes. They liked that at OCA. They liked that sort of thing. Audience Unlimited were not like that. They were professional. Some of them were really outgoing. Some of them were really charactery like me, but they weren't scummy. They weren't into drugs. They weren't into partying hard. They did have page parties and get-togethers, and they went to dinners together and, events. They went to Disneyland here and there. I never did that. I never was one of the pages that did that. But, I would get I talked to them online. We'd stay contact every time during the summers when the shows went down. We'd always stay in touch, and every time we worked the shows, we always gave it our best. We always it was like a party. It was fun. Because working those shows, we loved television and film, and we were devoted to the shows, to the audiences, and I believe any of those CBS pages, any of those head pages, would have made great CBS or NBC pages if they had applied to those programs in LA. They were amazing pages. They were professional, and they were much better than the pages, a lot of them that I worked with at CBS or that I saw the on-camera audiences had. These pages were professional. They were no nonsense. They wanted the audiences to have fun, but they wanted them to be safe, and they wanted them to have a good time at the same time. And that's what I loved about Audiences Unlimited. So I got to work Girl Meets World a couple of times, and I got to work The Conners when that came back, when Roseanne got canceled and went to The Conners. And I got to do Trivia Out in Line at Fuller House, and then Girl Meets World, and then The Conners. And then my two regular shows were Two Broke Girls and The Ranch, which I worked so many times. I did trivia at those shows too after a while. And I always made the best of it as much as I could, all the time. Always made the best of, I wasn't a PA. I wasn't a big crew member, but I was working these shows. And I was having fun. I was getting the audiences to have fun like I did at The Price is Right. And it was amazing. And I created memories for audience members that will always have those memories and look back at, and memories I can look back at. So by 2019, I decided I was moving back to Massachusetts, and then I turned in my uniform. I remember it was July, that Monday, I believe it was. It was a couple of days before. I think July 2nd. Yes. Because I left on the 3rd. It was July 1st, I think. 1st or 2nd. It was the 1st. That Monday, I think. Something like that. And I went to the office and I passed in my uniform. And Frank told me, Mark, you've done a great job here. Thank you for all you've done. And if you come back, you have a job here. And I said, I'd love to come back someday, but I have to go back to Massachusetts. It's too much money to stay out here. And after I moved home, Audiences Unlimited, after COVID happened, they closed down that July in 2020. So exactly 1 year after I handed in my uniform, it was July 1st or 2nd, I believe it was, they all got a message saying, thank you for all your, hard work over the years, but we're closing the company. And now on-camera audiences and One Iota have the remaining whatever shows do sitcoms with live audiences, and they do all those live audience shows like Dancing with the Stars, American Idol, America's Got Talent, and all those shows that should be canceled by now because they've been on too long. So, and those are some of my memories I remembered from Audiences Unlimited, and some of the pages I worked with, and some of the memories I have, and it was one of my favorite jobs of all time.